All right, we'll begin with good afternoon, everyone, and we'll begin with our customary prayer. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Hello everyone, again we meet again today to discuss a few concepts in Vedanta. The weather is getting cold, and well, before we begin, just a couple of logistics things to get out of the way really quick. Ty, you said you watch cricket, right? No. The world the World Cup is going on, but cricket, it's like a very long game. It's very tedious, it goes on and on and on. The traditional one, they actually played for 5 days, so it gets like not everyone's cup of tea, and it's okay. And hold on, the yoga is at 2 o'clock, right? Oh no, what, the yoga workshop? That's with Sandy, right? We were talking earlier before. Raja Yoga. It's like, get yourself wedged into all kinds of like different pretzels. I don't know, like it's hard to like get into yoga now. I mean, like do all the effort, all that physical effort, and it's hard. And also, in fact, Adi Shankara, who was like the Vedanta Adi Shankara, he himself said about pranayama of all the things. People should start. People should stop fiddling around with their nostrils. It was like it was very peculiar. Now, I know I started off with a tangent, right? So it's like two different things. However, when I asked Ty about cricket, right? How many of us even know about cricket here? Very few, maybe. Yeah, I know Raji knows because she's from India. But see, I did two things, right? I did pass a negative comment on cricket. Oh, cricket, it's a long, tedious game. But when I said something about cricket, right? At least those of us who are not like directly involved in cricket didn't raise any flags, and probably you just heard it as a comment and probably let it pass. But what did I do next? Started talking about disparagingly about Raja Yoga, yoga center and everything. I did make a few negative comments about Raja Yoga. Oh, you're getting this pretzel and everything. How did you all feel when you heard that second comment about yoga? What went? I just want to hear from some of you. What did you feel? Yeah, exactly. That I'm lazy. And what else? Okay, that's very good. That's a very yogic way of thinking. Any other?
I was sort of waiting to see where you're going with it.
Yeah. See, yes. Yes. See, the point is that today's topic is about attachments. Attachments and what's the role of the ego when it comes to attachments, right? The ego is like it's very subtle. It's extremely subtle, and it tends to like latch on to every single aspect of the human mind. in Sanskrit, there's especially in the Vedantic practice, they have a particular name for it. Abhimanatmaka antahkarana vritti. I'll break it down a little bit again. Abhimanatmaka antahkarana vritti. So what that means is that, of the panchakoshas, right? We have the body. When the body feels hunger, right? There's something going on, particular chemicals are released in the stomach, and then there's something, the body is telling you something, and then something in the mind, it is the ego that supersedes that feeling and says, I am hungry. It's the same thing with every single thing that happens in the body. When you are like talking to someone, you recall something, you want to recall something. It's really the memory of the mind recalling something, but then immediately the ego steps in and says, I recalled something. You do something, and then you say, the I steps in and say, this is I. Relating that to what I did in the beginning, right? So when we talk about something like cricket, of which most of us are not really, acquainted with, the ego is like ready. Okay, I don't know, what do I get? I don't know about cricket. Oh, okay, maybe it's a boring game. But the moment you hear something about which you are personally invested in, that's when the I kicks in. If you yourself are involved in an activity, or if you know a person, or if you do something, and then the moment you hear something disparaging, you tend to take it subconsciously personal. Oh, wait a minute, I do yoga. How come this person is talking negatively about yoga? It's like it's the I stepping in, and the I it co-opts everything, all the cues that is coming in. And also on the flip side, what the I does is, if someone starts talking good about yoga, oh, do you know all the benefits of yoga? Oh, the breathing is great, your health becomes great. You become suddenly happy. Oh yes, it is indeed true. Yeah, I do yoga. Yeah, good. Tell me more. So why I'm pointing that out is because this again goes back to 2 weeks ago when we were talking about resentments. It is again the same flip side of the coin. Well, why do resentments happen? It is again this function of the ego. When the ego is attached to something, and subconsciously you feel, oh, that when subconsciously, like, it is being talked quote unquote good about, the ego gets activated. So, oh, wait a minute, I don't like this because I'm invested in this. And then the moment something gets good attention, it's like, oh yeah, I like it because I'm involved in. Let me hear more about this. For this, it's called, again, going back again to the basics of Vedanta, the 4 practices of Vedanta: Viveka, Vairagya, Shamadhamadi Shat Sampatti, and then Mumukshatva. They go, it's like, they get progressively like more complicated. The very first step, Viveka. Even if not for spiritual practice, even for our secular practices in daily life, right? Many times, even in our everyday conversations, if we start applying this, if we just start thinking about, wait a minute, I had this unpleasant conversations, they always leave a mark in our mind, more than pleasant conversations. We might have had like 10 pleasant conversations with people, 10 pleasant interactions, but that one unpleasant interaction kind of like, always sticks in your mind. So, oh, wait a minute, that person did not smile, or that person said something nasty. It always nags you, right? If we just sit with it, sometimes we kind of like have an inkling on why that happened, but most of the times we know that we are annoyed, but we are just simply not able to like put a finger on it. Why does this thing annoy me so much? Or why does this person annoy me so much? What is it that in this incident, in this person, that is bothering me? And usually at the end of it is the seed of it comes as an attachment, either an at the end of it is again it goes back to what we call kama, moha. Kama is basically attachment to the worldly objects, that which is impermanent. And then once we are able to just acknowledge it, even not with an intention of overcoming it, just like putting a small check mark on it, okay, this is what is happening, that would be like a step toward just understanding what's going on why things annoy us. In Vedanta, you have like they even enumerated 3 different kinds of attachments that we have in the world. How it depends on how we get into contact with things of the world. The first one is called samyoga. Samyoga meaning the attachment that is created because of contact. It could be physical contact, it could be like a mental contact, it could be just because of the contact. For example, a good example would be, most of us are like sitting on a seat, right? At this minute, you are sitting on a seat, but then after the lecture is over, you're done with the seat, it goes back to the container, right? So your attachment to that seat is bound by that particular time period or by contact. That kind of attachment is called samyoga. Relatively easier to get over with because it's not like a permanent thing. The second one is a little bit more complicated. The second kind of attachment, it's called avyaya avyayi, meaning that it's part of a whole. Think of your arm in relation to the entire body, right? The body is called the avyayi, the whole, of which this arm is a part of. When we think of a body, right, it could be like a car, or it could be like that bench that you're sitting on. That one stand of the bench that is attached to the bench, you cannot see the part apart from the bench itself. So it's called the avyaya avyayi relation, attachment. The third one gets even more complicated. It's called tadatmya. Tadatmya meaning that it is ingrained, the essence is ingrained in the thing itself. Think of the perfume, think of the sweet odor a flower exudes. Now, can that sweet smell exist by itself? These days it can. They're like isolating all kinds of chemicals and then producing it artificially, yes. But that the sweet smell of a flower cannot exist by itself. It's that relation that binds. It's almost too intertwined. And that is the kind of attachment we have with our egos. Well, I studied chemistry for a couple of years, and in chemistry, there's a beautiful concept called miscibility. Miscibility means you just need to take half a drop of a miscible liquid, and then you put it in a solution, and it gets everywhere. It's like, I don't know if you have ever handled mercury, the metal mercury. You just drop one drop bit of it, and then it's everywhere. Before you know, it's like split into 1,000 splinters. So in the same way, the ego is completely scattered. It's completely diffused. It has effused itself into every single aspect, the thought, the inner workings of your thoughts. And think of how hard it would be to, it's very easy to say, oh yes, karma yoga, nishkama karma, do things unattached. But only when you recognize the magnitude to which ego is completely ego has completely embodied itself, only then can we even start thinking about, oh, okay, the magnitude of the problem now. How do I go about addressing it? So even before you start addressing it, we just have to like get to know the scale of the problem of the challenge that we're dealing with. So yes, it's a little bit of a, how to put it, it's not the most straightforward of subjects to talk about, simply because when we think of ourselves as a person right now, what's the first thing that we think about? Oh, the body. Oh, where's Gary? Oh, there he is. You look in front of the mirror and say, oh, that's me. And then we're pointing to the body. And then if we push a little bit further, say, okay, but is it just this to Gary or Giri? Is there and something more? If we push ourselves more, we start talking about, okay, maybe there's some minus, and not all the times, but it's hard. So sometimes we do tend to be, absent-minded. But then we do tend to identify ourselves with that mind, and then if we push even further, what's beyond mind? That's about like the current frontier of even the scientific understanding of the human experience. Oh no, mind, brain, probably you would say. So okay, that's the entirety of the person. Vedanta goes, yes, all of this, but then the true self is that which is experiencing all these different aspects of the human being, and why attachments are considered an impediment in understanding, in gaining a full understanding of the true self, is because attachments keep you tethered to this mortal world. Attachments keep you busy in the everyday dealings of the world, and the everyday dealings of the world are infinite. It never ends. It has been going on for eons, and it will continue for eons, and then there's real no end to it. The only true self is the Tattvamasi, that thou art, the true self. That is the one that is experiencing the world, and I just had to dwell on the silence for a minute. I was thinking about the concept of silence at the end of the Om, because the more we try to elucidate the nature of attachments, the more it keeps on eluding us. In fact, when we did during the Navaratri, when we did the Homa here, it's a beautiful story of the Devi, that toward the end in Durga Saptashati, they have a beautiful story in which Devi ends up fighting Shumba Nishumb. They're like two demon kings. And then toward the end, just before being killed, both of them come out with 10,000 arms. And Devi like cuts out each one of the arm, and then she becomes victorious. The symbol of that being that the 10,000 arms are symbolic of the mind, which the mind and its attachments. When you're on the spiritual path, and just when you think that you have finally conquered your ego, that's when it comes back with a vengeance. That's when it reveals itself in all its potential, and in its what you call the fiercest, most almost indestructible way. But if you think about like a being with 10,000 arms. And the significance of Devi is considered Maya, meaning that she is the one who holds the power of veiling and unveiling. And it's only through true surrender to the Devi that we even have a chance of veil.
Veil, like a hiding behind.
Yes. And it is the Devi who has the power to veil and to unveil. And also to free us from our proclivities for attachments. Well, on that note, and before we end, today is Deepavali, one of the most ancient and one of the most celebrated holidays in the Hindu calendar. And just a small note on the name: we keep on hearing Diwali. Diwali is more of like the shortened form. The actual name is Deepavali. It's actually a conjugation of two words: Deepa, which is the light, which is why we have the lamp burning there, and then Avali. Avali means a gathering, or like a group, or putting together. So the combination of the two words becomes Deepa, Avali, Deepavali. Even in the chanting that we did, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, lead us from darkness onto light. So Deepavali is the significance. It is that significance of the celebration of leading us toward light from darkness. So that's one of the, and it has been in the practice for generations and generations and generations.